Hey guys, I'm Mason, and this is Wrestling in the Dark, the only professional wrestling podcast brought to you by a blind wrestling fan. AEW's Fyter Fest pay-per-view was last night, they're back for more, and so am I. I struggled with Double or Nothing at points, they lost me with the high, fast-paced action, but I wanted to dive back in again and see if I could get a little bit more used to it. I've been very, very excited for this. So, what happened at Fyter Fest? How good was it? And some would say most importantly, who walked away with that WITD Predictions Championship? It was a triple threat match between myself, Discord's own Gustavo Gama, and Dirty Dan. If you want to find out what happened, stick around and find out. The three-way tag team match kicked off the show. It was Best Friends versus SCU versus Private Party. This was one of the matches that I was sort of worried about just because of the multi-man aspect of things, which I do usually struggle with because of either dropped calls, vague calls, or just fast-paced action. But I actually enjoyed this match. I don't necessarily mind not knowing what's going on at all times or who's legal at all times if there's a decent story to this match, and in all honesty, there was. The two more experienced teams were highly dismissive of Private Party. One of the main points of the match was the fact that people were going for lazy covers on them, not taking them quite as seriously as they should. Both members of Private Party had really good showings, and even though they didn't walk out with the win in this, they did end up looking really, really good in my opinion. One of the early moment things that I liked about this match was Excalibur pointing out that Mark Quinn was in the black and Isaiah Cassidy was in the orange. A small touch, I didn't really necessarily need to know that, but it helped me build a mental image of the competitors, and in all honesty, that was pretty good. I liked the interplay between the three commentators, which was Excalibur, Golden Boy, and I missed the English guy's name, but I thought that they actually had some really decent interplay. They had a banter, but it never came across as bickering, and that was good. One of the really, really nice points of this match was Excalibur again. Beautiful call as Trent hit a Northern Lights suplex, and he talked about the fact that he really brought the leg in so that it would increase the impact on the shoulders and that downward momentum. And I thought that was really, really a nice touch. It wasn't the only time that he did that throughout the night either. Trent got a huge chop on Isaiah Cassidy at one point. Really, one of the things that I enjoyed about this was that it never got too crazy in terms of it was two teams take on each other while one has a rest or is down, and then they switch. One comes in and interrupts and picks up the momentum, and I just thought that it worked really well. The commentators were really spot on with telling me that Best Friends were working the backs of Private Party, trying to neutralise the high-flying style, the fast pace, just trying to take the power out of them. I like that. Isaiah Cassidy was really, really over with people. He hit silly string at some point, and that's one of those things that I wish commentators did in terms of telling you what a move is, especially with a team like Private Party that they're putting over as being quite inexperienced, quite a new team. Maybe people haven't seen them before, so they might want to tell you what that is. I felt sort of the same way with the finish too, because they said that they hit the strong zero when Best Friends picked up the win, and I have no idea what the strong zero is, so I wouldn't have minded them sort of explaining what that was, even if it was just a sort of vague explanation of it. But I really was impressed with this. I never thought that I was lost. I really enjoyed all the members involved. There was some really good double team work by SCU. I think at one point Kazarian got a leg lock takedown, and I'm really blanking on the other member of SCU, but then he hit a senton, and I thought that was really, really nice. Again, if I do drop a name like that, please just bear with me, because I'm not up to date or clued in with the indies much at all. AEW is really the only exposure that I've had to it, as a, you know, unless you count a couple of Ring of Honor episodes here and there, and an Impact now and again, or just the once. I'm telling lies. I don't know why I'm trying to make it sound like I watch Impact more often than I do, because it was just that one time. So yeah, I'm not well versed when it comes to the indies, but I thought that this was a really decent way to kick off the night. I thought it was easy to follow. I really liked the story of the two more experienced teams just not taking Private Party seriously and just underestimating them a little bit. And I was convinced that they were going to come out with the win, but in the end it ended up being best friends. And then the Dark Order pulled a Wyatt family, and they did the thing where they turned the lights off and then surround the ring, and then they went off again, and the commentators were complaining about it being dark, which just really made me laugh. And then Dark Order were gone. We didn't get the beatdown. I did like the Dark Order promo though, where they said that they'd looked for their firsts and they'd chosen best friends because you never forget you first. And he said, don't worry though, we'll make it quick. And one of the other Dark Order members interrupted and said, no we won't, because I want to enjoy every second of it. Bit creepy, but I guess that's what they were going for, and it all just worked out pretty well. They're doing a really, really decent job of building the tag division, in my opinion, especially considering that they're going to be launching TV with that tag title tournament. I was just really, really impressed with this. I'm glad, really, that they got it out of the way, and the buy-in. My attention was fresh, and there was, like I said, I never really felt like I was lost, and there was plenty of really, really cool spots in this that I haven't necessarily picked up on, that I might have got down in my notes, because I can't remember everything. But nonetheless, I thought that this was a strong 4 out of 6 match, and unfortunately I was the only one that didn't pick up a point here, because I went Private Party in my predictions, and Dan and Gus went for best friends, so they both pick up a point. The Librarians, Leva Bates and Peter Avalon, hit the ring to cut a bit of a promo before their match. I quite enjoyed this. It was nice and amusing. Leva was burying video games, and Peter was just basically being her hype man, repeating things that she said. I didn't really think that he connected with me. I thought that Leva, however it's said, I thought that she pulled off the gimmick a lot better. The shushing thing is good. It's quite entertaining. I don't know how far they're going to be able to go with it, and it is sometimes a little bit annoying too with how long they drag it on with the dueling shushes. I did like that she was burying video games. It was a decent touch that sort of personalised the heat for the venue, and she was saying that there was whole worlds at their fingertips with books. It's not just comic books and anime and manga, there's books with words, just read. And the crowd started chanting, we can't read, and that was pretty entertaining. That then led into Ali versus Leva Bates, with Peter Avalon in a corner. This one, I never really felt lost, never really felt like it had any real stakes though either. I don't know, maybe if this had stayed as the match that I thought it was going to be, and it was Kylie Ray versus Leva Bates, I think maybe it would have felt a little bit more like I didn't know what was going to happen. Whereas in Ali gearing her up for a match with Brandy, she's obviously going to pick up the win there. And past that, I just didn't really feel like it had any stakes, and it never really got started in terms of the momentum for me either after such a hot start to the show. I didn't think it was bad at all. I actually thought there was some decent spots and decent calls in this. We got some nice distractions by Peter Avalon, but mostly they worked to distract Leva. One of the stories that they were sort of trying to tell with it is that he really wants to help, and Leva is just not interested at all. He's just he's absolutely crazy for her, and she's just not interested, and in a way it was making things harder for her. I quite like that Ali was working the finger, the page turning or index finger, which she would use for shushing. And I also like that Lever's offense quite often focused on trying to drive the wind out of people, because I feel like that is sort of a physical manifestation of wanting to make people be quiet. I really enjoyed that that she was just going for those sort of moves with the double knees to the chest and the lung blower. Then I also liked that there was some calls by Excalibur that were good in terms of Ali going for a violence party, I think he said, channeling Super Dragon, which I have heard of before. I'm not particularly sure who he is, but it's nice to know who these sorts of people are trying to pay homage to or whatever, because it's nice learning a new world. She did a sliding elbow strike straight to Lever's throat at some point, and I thought that was pretty good. And then the finish of the match saw Peter throw the book to Lever, but Ali intercepted and then hit the BSE, whatever that is. Again, I would like these moves explained. You've got to treat me like I'm a first-time viewer, because most of us are. Obviously, I know that a lot of AEW fans are long-time indie fans, but you've got to account for the fact that lots of people are seeing these people for the first time. So if anyone wants to explain what a BSE is to me, that'd be nice. I gave this a 3 out of 6. Like I said, I didn't think it was bad. It never really gripped my attention, but there were some nice spots, and the commentary never really let it down. I just didn't think that it had the momentum that the first match had, or that I would want to follow that second match. Dan, unfortunately, went for Smiley Kylie in his predictions, so even though it was Ali instead, he still doesn't pick up a point, and me and Gus do, because we went for Lever Bates. Decent way to introduce Lever a bit more and continue that storyline that she's got with Peter, and a decent win for Ali. One of the things that I enjoyed about the commentary was the English guy, I think his name might have been Louis something, but he took a shot at one point at Brandy, who was watching the match backstage, and took a shot at the angle of the TV. I thought that was pretty funny, but yeah, it was a 3 out of 6 match, but not in a bad way. Alex Jubei versus Michael Nakazawa next. So let's just address the first thing that I didn't really like about this. I'm not sure that I like Justin Roberts' his intro for Nakazawa. I was like, Nakazawa! It sort of annoys me, I don't know why, it just draws it out a little bit long, but other than that, quite enjoyed this match. It was a hardcore match, and in the early moments, the English guy made a joke about telling Jubei it was a hardcore match and having to convince him not to bring hardcore anime DVDs. I found that pretty funny. It was nice to have sort of a British voice there with the dry sense of humour that just sort of ripping on people made me feel quite at home, I guess. It was a really funny match, in my opinion. I know that my indie correspondent Glenn didn't like this match. He said that he thought it was terrible, but I actually quite enjoyed it. I think that the stuff with Nakazawa's oil, I think, is pretty funny. At one point, the oil was everywhere, everyone was slipping round in it, and I was really, really entertained by Nakazawa going for a stomp, slipping on the oil, and ended up doing a senton instead because he slipped. I just thought that was a pretty entertaining spot. It was funny, though, because you sort of had these comedy-esque spots, but they were actually doing some pretty hardcore stuff in this match, I guess. There's some sort of pool that I think may have been a kiddie pool, I think, up at the top of the ramp or whatever. And at one point, either Nakazawa or Jubei was drowning the other one, like holding him under the water, and the ref was trying to ask him if he wanted to quit, and the commentators were like, "He's under the water. How's he gonna answer that?" And it was just like, I've never seen someone be drowned in a match before. And then a little bit later on, Nakazawa was choking him with a fight stick, which Alex Jubei introduced to the match actually, and he was sort of hitting Nakazawa with it, and it sounded really brutal. I thought that was pretty cool. Jubei pulled out a bag of like play buttons. I assume like buttons for controllers or whatever. They all had Jubei's face on it, and he sent Nakazawa onto them. I thought it was a pretty entertaining match. It wasn't, it's never going to be match of the night, or it's not going to be my favourite match, but I actually thought for entertainment value it was pretty funny, and I definitely enjoyed it more than the Ali versus Leva Bates match. I don't know why. I never really felt like the Ali Leva Bates match got started with like the momentum, whereas in this it was just a bit of silliness. It's sort of hardcore silliness, which was nice, I think, because we got, the sort of more brutal hardcore spots coming later on in the night, and this is just sort of a parody of that, I guess, and just a nice, fun way to end the buy-in with. So I gave it a 4 out of 6. So a low 4, but it gets 4 for humour. We all went Nakazawa, so no one gets a point for that. And it was, like I said, it was a 4 out of 6 match. Thought it was pretty funny and a nice way to end the buy-in, and I never really felt lost either. The opening match on the main show was Christopher Daniels versus Shema of the OWE partnership. I really enjoyed this match. I think that they've done a little bit of work building this match on Road to Fyter Fest and being the Elite, but even if you hadn't watched that, I think that the commentary did a fairly good job of letting you know that these guys have history, a long history, and that they know each other really well. They explained that Christopher Daniels once had an alter ego called Curryman, and that Shema had a faction called Super Crazy Max, and they came together to make Super Curry Max. And although I don't know anything about, what they did at that time, at least I know that there was a little bit of history and just a little nod to their past that just makes them feel like they've experienced each other outside of this AEW world, and now they're having their latest chapter on this pay-per-view. And I just thought that it was really well put together, and it told a really good story. Daniels was working the back of Shema, and he was doing it really well. There was lots of nice spots and nice calls in this match. At one point, Daniels hit a release Northern Lights suplex, which sent Shema over the top rope to the outside. Thought that was really nice, a good spot and well called. There was a kick out at one point of the Angel's wings, and Excalibur put over the fact that the reason that the pinfall didn't work was because he actually hooked the legs too deep, which allowed Shema to carry the momentum and kick out. And I thought that was really, really nice. At one point, Shema hit a backstabber, but hurt his own back in the process. And that was sort of the story of the match, was Daniels just working the back of Shema and trying to ground him and slow down the pace. There was a really, really nice call too, where Daniels hit a moonsault, but Excalibur put over the fact that rather than going for a pin from the moonsault or celebrating, he just rolled straight through into a submission, knowing that probably wouldn't be enough to put Shema away. And I just thought that was really, really cool. It was mostly a Daniels showcase, in my opinion. Most of the notes that I've got written down were Daniels things, but I think that there was a nice point where Shema tried to go for a flip bomb, but Daniels hung on to the turnbuckle, then he ended up getting him with a driver. And I thought that it was just a really nice back and forth match. Like I said, I felt like Daniels got a little bit more, but the match went down the way that I thought it was, because Shema hit the Meteora in the end for the win. And I thought it was the right choice. You want to put over those OWE guys, give them a little bit more exposure. Daniels really doesn't need the win here because they're putting over how much of a legend he is anyway, and he did a really good job of making himself still look good. I gave this another strong 4. I really thought that maybe given 5 minutes more or whatever, that this might have gone to a 5, but it was another strong 4. One of the things that I did enjoy this pay-per-view is with the time limits. I did like having Justin Roberts announcing 10 minutes have passed, 10 minutes left. Feels like it keeps you in the match. You're never wondering how long's passed, how long's left, and I like the drama that the time limit causes. But yeah, this was a decent way, in my opinion, to open up the main card. Really just gives Shema that spotlight and lets him pick up the win. And like I said, it was a 4 out of 6 match. Myself and Gustavo went for Shema, and Dan went with his heart and went with Christopher Daniels, and that means he doesn't pick up a point for this one. 3-way women's action between Rijo, Yuka Sakazaki and Nyla Rose in what I thought was the best match of the night. It was fast, it was fun, there was just plenty of spots to enjoy in this, and everyone got a little bit of a chance to shine, and I really enjoyed it. There was only one note that I had here of a lazy call that they just didn't call, and it was in the early moments Nyla Rose hit a suplex, but they didn't say who to, and at that point I really don't mind because it's just that one thing. For the rest of the match, I never really felt like I was lost. There was a sequence that ended in Yuka sending Nyla Rose out of the ring, which Rijo was already on the outside, and Yuka dived on both of them. There was plenty of that sort of thing. It was really cool that in the early moments, Yuka and Rijo were really teaming up on Nyla Rose, and she was attacking both of them at the same time. She locked in a double camel clutch, which I think is really interesting, and the commentators put over the fact that only one of them had to get to the ropes for the hold to be broken, and they had 4 arms and legs to crawl with, and that was just a really nice call. I can't give these in consecutive order. I couldn't run through the match because there's just so many things, so I have to sort of fire off stuff that I remember sort of as we go along. There was a bit where Nyla Rose hit a stalling suplex, and as she hit it, Yuka rolled out of the ring so she couldn't get the cover, so she went and hit a Vader bomb on Rijo instead, and I thought that was pretty interesting. At one point, Yuka dived with a body press at Nyla and she caught her, and Rijo got caught too, and that was really impressive. They really put over the strength of Nyla Rose in this one, and I think that was a really clever way to go. The expected way to go, but she didn't get as much of a chance to shine last time at Double or Nothing with the Awesome Kong overshadowing her, but this time she really got that time to shine, and I really thought it made her look quite impressive. One of the things that cost her in this match though is that she was just being a little bit cocky. She's only going for those lazy pins, not fully going for the pin and keeping them down, just sort of being cocky about it, and I thought that was really cool because in the end that was probably the thing that cost her. Yuka hit that 619. I think that I'm gonna have to get used to what they call that. I think it was Tiger Feet. If I got that wrong, people can you can correct me, but one of the really cool parts was Nyla going to the top rope with Rijo up there. They were fighting, and then Nyla hit a guillotine from the top rope, but she didn't go for the cover. And again, really playing off that that power, but also the cockiness and sort of the fact that she was just taking the other two for granted a little bit and underestimating them. And I just thought that everyone looked really, really good in this match. And it was, again, I just never felt lost. I never felt confused. I always felt like I knew what was going on. Yuka looked for the magical girl splash a few times, but never really got it. She did go for it, and Rijo got the knees up at one point. There was a Death Valley bomb from... a Death Valley driver from Nyla at one point, but she was sort of knackered at that point, so she only got the one-armed cover, and in the end Rijo managed to get the roll-up and pick up the win. I thought this was a solid 5 out of 6 match, and like I said, I really thought that it was the best match on the card. You know what? I didn't even notice that we had JR there for the most part. He made some sort of joke about them being petite at the beginning and then talked about his granddaughters. And I didn't really know what his point was, and I don't think the other commentators did either because they didn't really say anything. I really, really enjoyed this team, though, this time. Excalibur, Golden Boy and JR. I thought that it was really, really good. Excalibur really took the driver seat. Golden Boy had some nice input, and JR actually was a lot better than last time. Only really annoyed me once, and I was just really, really impressed with this, and I was really happy too, because me and Dan went for Rijo and Gus went for Nyla Rose, which means that me and Dan pick up a point there, and Gus doesn't. And I like I said, I've got to say, I'm just really, really impressed with this match. Really liking that AEW women's division, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where they go from here. A strong 5 out of 6 match for the 3-way women's match. A 4-way match between MJF, Jungle Boy, Jimmy Havoc, and Adam Hangman Paige. This was probably my most anticipated match of the night, other than Cody versus Darby Allin, and if you want character, this is the match for you, in my opinion. Although I enjoyed the women's match more in terms of the actual in-ring action, I think that might have just been because of that extra man. I really do struggle with multi-man matches once it gets over that 3-person point. I feel like with 3 people in the ring, there's, it can be 2-on-1 or 1-on-2, and other than that, there's not as many combinations. Even when you just add that last person in, you get it gets a little bit too hectic for me, and I did enjoy this match though, and even though I felt like I was lost at some points, I really, really enjoyed it. MJF cut a promo before the match, which was absolutely great. He started trying to talk and the crowd was booing him before he even started. He's like, what, are you getting flashbacks of being shoved into lockers or something? I haven't even started talking yet. And he sort of just buries the crowd and all of the competitors in the match. He's like, I used to like video games, and then I lost my virginity. And it was great, because he was like, I used to like video games, and the crowd all starts chanting, video games, like a bunch of plebs. And then MJF's like, and then I lost my virginity. And it was just like, he got you, crowd. And then he definitely got the upper hand on the crowd here, because they started chanting, you suck. And he was like, yeah, but the mother whose basement he lives in swallows. So... And I just think he's got a really, really good handle on his character. He comes across like an actual star. He's as good as he thinks he is, but he still... the cockiness still shines through and makes him look like an idiot, and it's so good. Jimmy Havoc didn't show quite as much character. He got buried in that promo too. MJF says... He calls Jungle Boy a dollar store Tarzan. He calls Jimmy Havoc a grown man still going through his high school emo boy phase. He calls Adam Page Seabiscuit, which he's been calling him anyway. I just really, really enjoyed that. I didn't think there was as much from Jimmy Havoc in this. I think they might have tried to tone it down with the violent stuff with him because of what we were getting later. But other than that, there was some really cool stuff. Jungle Boy came out on the back of Luchasaurus, and there was a few spots throughout the match where Luchasaurus either assisted or saved Jungle Boy. There was one point where Jungle Boy got nailed on the apron and would have fallen off, but Luchasaurus kept him up on the apron. I thought that was really cool. The young boy and his dinosaur gimmick is actually really entertaining. It draws you in, and they seem to have some really, really good chemistry, and they're pulling it off really well. It gets me really into them, and these four I think I was just really, really enjoying. I'm struggling to think of the spots, but I did enjoy the match. There was a springboard by MJF to the outside. Havoc hit a running senton to Paige. There was a slightly vague call at one point. I think that it was a powerbomb from Jungle Boy to MJF, and they were like, "Oh, a powerbomb! He really stuck it." The story really of the match is like one person would get some momentum going, and he'd be either taking it to the other two, or someone would be down, and then someone else would come in and interrupt that, and they take it for a bit. Like I said, it's because I do have lots of notes when it comes to this sort of thing, and it's also just hard because of the way I record things. But it just makes my head ache a little bit, if I'm being honest. I really like that they put over the fact that Jungle Boy's speed was almost unstoppable if you let him go in, and they had to try to really temper that. The other competitors did. MJF was really going after Hangman, and after a while he started working Hangman's leg, which was to the liking of Kip Sabian, who'd joined commentary. I'm getting really, really turned around. I'm not gonna lie, it's hot, and this is a lot to remember. Havoc went for the Acid Rainmaker at some point, but got taken out. It was just crazy action. I didn't, like I said, for some reason I didn't enjoy it as much as I enjoyed the women's match. I think maybe just because the spots that I did have down were sort of vague. It was like this person does this and then gets interrupted by this person, and it was just sort of like waiting for the end of the match, I guess. In the end, Hangman hit the Deadeye for the win, and again I gave this a 4 out of 6. It's been really difficult grading these matches or rating them, however you want to put it, just because I'm so unfamiliar with this sort of style. It loses me a little bit, and I'll admit, I did get a little bit lost in this match, which is why I haven't been able to go into the spots as well. But in my opinion, what it lacked in terms of me getting lost because of the multi-man aspect of it, it did have a lot of character bits in that I really enjoyed, and I'm looking forward to seeing where MJF goes from here, whether he takes on Jungle Boy again, or whether him and Jimmy Havoc have something, or whether they just move on to something else. And I'm looking forward to seeing Hangman versus Kip Sabian too, because I think that could be really cool. JR really put over for a while that no one was working Hangman's leg, and also how taped up it was. And like I said, MJF was working it for a little bit, but it was to no avail because Hangman picked up the win, and we all went MJF here, so no one gets the point for that one. He wins, Hangman wins, in a 4 out of 6 match. Cody versus Darby Allin next. This is one of the matches that I was looking forward to most and probably enjoyed least. There's always got to be one match that you didn't necessarily like or hate this, and I didn't really dislike it, but I didn't enjoy it anywhere near as much as some of the other matches on this card. I don't know what it is about Cody's matches, but he seems to want to be quite an old school wrestler, and I think that leads to some plodding style matches. Felt the same sort of way about Dustin, although I really did enjoy that match. I don't know. I said in my predictions that this will be the one that tells the tale of who Cody really is, because he's tried to draw the battle lines between him and Triple H, and this was really, in my opinion, the thing that told us whether he's going to be that much different from Triple H. And I don't know. I don't know how to really say this other than I felt like it was quite Triple H-y to not put Darby over. Taking Darby very seriously, and I know that that's a character thing, but even just the character, I didn't like that he wasn't taking him seriously. Like at one point, he like dumped him out of the ring, and then he was just doing push-ups while he was waiting, and he really wasn't taking him seriously. And I just wanted, I guess, with how they've portrayed Darby in the road to Fyter Fest, he's come across as so intense and dangerous, and I really wanted Cody to be like, oh god, this guy is going to come and take my spot. And I get that the wins and losses matter in AEW, and they didn't want to give Cody his first loss, especially not heading into his match with Dustin against the Young Bucks. But why have the match at all? I don't know. In my opinion, if they were going to do what they did and end it in a time limit draw, then they just shouldn't have done it, because I don't think that it came off as cool or as evenly keeled as they wanted it to. In the early moments of the match, Cody went for a hip toss that Darby countered with some sort of aerial move. They didn't really say what that was, they just said taking to the sky. Like I said, Cody dumped Darby over the top rope, was doing push-ups while he was waiting for him. At one point, Darby managed to smash Cody's wrist into the turnbuckle, and from there on, that was a problem for Cody. He was trying to lock in some sort of submission at some point, and JR was putting over the fact that if he can lock it in and hold it, then Cody's wrist will be fine, but if not, then it means that he's damaged it a bit, and he couldn't lock it in, which obviously JR then put over as, oh, his wrist isn't doing too good. There was a long time, in my opinion, where Darby was getting ground down by Cody. He just weathered a lot of punishment, and don't get me wrong, the commentators, it was definitely the story of the match because the commentators put it over. They just were talking about the relentlessness of Darby and putting over his character, and JR was talking about how mental he seems in terms of wanting to go and talk to him because his eyes were glazed over and thinking that he might need someone to talk to, and then putting over the fact that he was quite eloquent. And they did a lot of character building with Darby, but it was also all over while he was getting beaten down, and I felt like it was a really, really extended period. There was a few times where I didn't feel like the commentary did what they were supposed to do, and it's surprising because for the most part they did really well, and I don't have any problems with it. But it's also telling, I guess, that one of the things that one of the people who was doing those dropped calls was JR, with being the ex-WWE guy, because no one else, I don't feel like, did any V calling. But there's a point where they were on the ropes and JR was like, oh, they're on the tippy top of the ropes, this is dangerous, oh, and that's devastating for both men. At one point, Cody was out on the apron and Darby did a coffin drop. Not particularly sure what that was, but it was on the apron, and I'm not quite clear on whether it actually got Cody or not. Darby got planted on the steel steps at one point, and after that long period of being beaten down, he finally managed to catch Cody's hand and start working that a little bit, and he managed to get back into the match for a while. Towards the end of the match, Cody zipped Darby into the body bag that he brought to the ring with him that he said was for Cody, zipped him into it, hit the disaster kick but didn't get the cover, and the ref was trying to get Darby out of the bag, and that was pretty cool. One of the things that I've really enjoyed with this pay-per-view is that the commentators really put over the commentary and how good they were. They told you who was officiating each match, and there was quite a few points throughout the night where they were like, oh, that's they got great positioning there, and really put over the fact that the ref's discretion matters, which is important. I think one of the things that I definitely agree with people is that the refs in WWE look really, really stupid half the time, whereas I really respected what the officials were saying in this match, and that I think is because they put over the refs so well. There was, at the 15-minute mark, there was a near fall from Darby for a move that I'm really, really not sure what it was, but it got quite a big reaction. And then the finish of this match I didn't really like as much either. I just felt like they started getting towards the time limit. There was like 30 seconds left, and he'd been looking for the crossroads, and eventually he hit it, but he was too tired to go for the cover, and eventually they went to the time limit draw. And I don't know, in my opinion, I don't think that makes Darby look that good, because Cody could have got the win if he could have got to the cover. I would have preferred it if maybe they'd have hit some sort of big spot that sent them both down, and they'd have just hit the time limit draw from like the double down or whatever. I just feel like, with how anti-WWE they've tried to be, with how much Cody has tried to bury the image of Triple H, just feel like it was quite a Triple H move to not put over that younger guy who, with far less exposure than Cody just really didn't need a win here. And I know that he didn't win, it was a draw, but he still hit the last move of the match and he could have got the win. So in my opinion, it was quite a Triple H-y thing. He could have just put over Darby, or just not done the match at all, because I don't think it made him look good just because he was against Cody. So, to the disappointment of most people, I gave this a 3 out of 6. And no one wins here because it was a time limit draw. I went for Darby, so did Gus, and luckily for Dan, he went for Cody. So, although he doesn't get it wrong, he also doesn't get a point, and neither do we. But, there we go. I'm really disappointed, I guess, with this match. Is the one disappointing thing. Just never really felt like I got drawn in that much, and I thought it was quite slow. So yeah, it was a 3 out of 6. There was a reason that this main event was my least anticipated match, or the match that I was the most nervous for. Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks versus Laredo Kid and the Lucha Brothers. I just didn't really feel this match. It's so hard to keep up with this level of wrestling. I guess when I was watching it, I never really... I don't really know how to describe it, to be honest. This is going to be one of those things that I've just really, really got to get used to. I felt like there was a lot of spots that I did catch and a lot of spots that I didn't catch, and it was really hard to keep up with who was legal and what was going on, and there was fighting on the outside and the inside, and people were doing this and that, and it was just really, really hard to keep up with. There was some miscommunications, I think, between the Young Bucks. I think at one point Nick accidentally speared Matt, or the other way around. At one point someone got body dropped over the ropes. They said they went over Omega's head, and I didn't know who that one was either. There was a point where it was like, Spear, Destroyer, and I was just like, on who? I don't know who's in right now. There was just a lot of stuff that I missed here. I think Nick went for 450 at one point. Kenny tried to go for the cover after that, but got kicked in the head. At one point, Laredo Kid was left on the inside with all of the Elite. Phoenix was trying to look for a cutter for quite a lot of the match that he ended up hitting towards the end. Amigos hitting Snapdragon suplexes. At one point, Nick or Matt hit Northern Lights suplexes that he rolled through with. There was lots of Northern Lights in this pay-per-view. Like I said, I didn't necessarily not enjoy it. It's just sort of like watching fireworks, where it's like, okay, there's things going on. And it's just... It's going to take a little while, I think. I definitely didn't find this whole pay-per-view as confusing as I did with Double or Nothing, but this match I really, really got lost with. Like I said, I think that there was miscommunications between the Bucks, and I'm interested in that to see what's going on, because it doesn't seem like the Elite are getting along very much. Kenny has been struggling with these skits that they did in terms of trying to get bands booked that were pulling out and trying to get Robert Downey Jr. and promising the Bucks things that they didn't have, blowing the budget on new gear so they couldn't afford models, and it just felt like they may be sowing some little seeds of discontent between the Elite. But I also might have just completely got mixed up, and it's sort of a shame, because these three, or these six, I guess, but the Elite are definitely people that I've wanted to get exposure to and see matches from for a long time, and I'm looking forward to Kenny having his first one-on-one, because I'm really looking forward to seeing one of his matches. He hit a running V-trigger at one point. I know that happened. There was a near fall from a Tiger Driver 98, I think. There was just a lot with this. It happened again too. I think we need a WITD bingo card, because we got, I don't know who's even legal right now, from JR again, and I was just like, you should know who's legal. I think Excalibur tried to correct him, and I think at the time he did correct him, and he was like, oh, it's Omega and Phoenix, don't worry. Like, it's been confusing. So really, I can't really give loads of opinion on this match. I just couldn't keep up with it. I didn't hate it, I didn't get bored, but I was just like, I have no idea what's going on. In the end, the Elite picked up the win, to my dismay, because that means that Gus is the WITD predictions champion, because he pulls ahead of me and Dan, leaving us at 5. Gus at 5, me at 4, and Dan at 3. So that one was a blow to me. Not only was this match really, really confusing, but it meant that Gustavo won the WITD Predictions Championship. I wish that I could give you more on this one, guys. It's the main event, or technically the main event, because of the unsanctioned nature of Moxley versus Janela, and I really would like to give you more of what I thought, but I just didn't really have any opinions, because there was just a certain point where I was like, I don't know what's going on, and my mind's just sort of switched off. So yeah, those were my thoughts on the Elite versus Lucha Brothers and Laredo Kid. I didn't really feel like I got to know any of these competitors any more than I already did, or didn't know them, unfortunately, because for the most part I do feel like I got to know most of the competitors on this pay-per-view a little bit more, and this one was the only one that I didn't feel like gave me much to go with, or any sort of relatability or connection to any of the people in the ring. So it's really, really hard to grade, but I gave it a 3 out of 6, because I know that it would have been good if I could have seen it, but unfortunately I couldn't, and it meant that I got lost. So yeah, it was a 3 out of 6. Jon Moxley versus Joey Janela. It's time for Baby's first death match, because I've never watched any type of death match before. The most that I've seen is an Extreme Rules match in WWE, and I did feel like there was maybe a little bit of a shot in this match. I'll get to that in a little bit, but this match, man, It's let's just call it self-harm the match. Why don't we? Because I don't see how it's not classed as self-harm to do a match like this. I really don't know how I feel about this sort of thing. It's a really weird one because it's like, for entertainment value, it was, it's definitely shocking, and it definitely makes you go, oh, about a million times. And there were some really cool spots, but I just don't know. It's like, okay, guys, you really don't need to go this far to entertain me. You don't need to go this far for my approval. And I guess they're not trying to get my approval. That's sort of the point with these two, is that they just don't care. But it was just like, blimey. There is some violence in this match. It was mostly based around the barbed wire, which seems to be Mox's favourite thing, and the crowd was definitely into Mox, but was just like horrified by him at the same time. There's quite a few times where they chanted "You sick fuck" at him, and mostly after it was, spots to do with the barbed wire. He slammed Joey Janela onto a chair that was wrapped in barbed wire. That elicited the "You sick fuck" chant for the first time. And the commentators put over the fact that although that might seem painful for Joey Janela, he's been gorilla pressed off a roof into a truck full of light tubes. And I'm just like, why, Joey? Why do people do this to themselves? It's like, don't get me wrong, it's not that I didn't enjoy it, because like I said, I guess for just sort of shock value and like, oh my god, what the hell, this was definitely entertaining, but I just don't know if there's any need for it, and especially with it being the first one that they've done. It's like, oh my god, where are they, how are they gonna up that? At one point, Mox pulled out a board that he seemed to have DIY'd and wrapped completely in barbed wire. He ended up getting sent through that by Janela, and he was like sort of tangled in it for a minute. And that was like brutal, because he was like cutting himself as he was trying to get out. Same fate met Janela later on in the match, because he got Death Valley bombed into it, and he was well and truly stuck, and they were really putting over the fact that he was like having to cut his hands trying to get the barbed wire like from around his limbs and that sort of thing. At one point, home base was just pulled out from under the ring. If anyone is an American and don't know what home base is, it's like a home improvement store, and it's got everything. And that's just what it made me think of. Sorry, I've been talking for so long, my throat is just absolutely dying on me. It's a home improvement store, and it just made me think of it because it was like a ladder, a table, a ladder, another table, a chair, this, that, the other. Like, it just ended up being a massive pile. At one point, Janela did a diving elbow to Mox while he was on a couple of tables. They really put over that he drove the elbow into the sternum of Moxley. As Janela was wrapped up in those barbed wire strings, I don't know what you call it, the coils of barbed wire, Mox was going under the ring. He pulled out a bucket, and now this is where I think that they were taking shots, because this really reminded me of the Ambrose Asylum match, Ambrose versus Jericho, with those thumbtacks that ended up being like, not as many. I assume that there was a lot with this. It made it sound like, I don't know whether it was the whole bucket or whether he was pulling out packs of it from the bucket, but there seemed to be lots of thumbtacks, and he took off Janela's footwear, took off his boots and his socks, so that every time he had to try to escape from a move, he was stepping on the tacks. He got it in his heels, and I really don't feel like I was lost at any point in this match, because let's face it, it wasn't really a wrestling match. Although there was a few more traditional wrestling style moves. Man, my nose is just completely itching off at the minute because of hay fever. Sorry for this complete tangent. I never really felt lost because it was going from spot to spot to spot, and it was really cool, and it was sort of, like I said, I found it kind of awesome, but I was also just sort of like, I don't know whether I feel like I need wrestlers to do this for my entertainment, because it's just like, they're poor bodies, man. They're like just cutting themselves apart and just like shredding the skin, getting thumbtacks stuck in them, and just, oh man. And then when Mox ended up picking up the win with that paradigm shift DDT with just Janela just face first onto those tacks, it's just like, one of them could have gone into his eye or anything. It's just like, so yeah. It's really difficult to rate this match. What do you give a death match? What was I expecting? Usually with a 6 out of 6, that's like, I couldn't have done this better. But I don't know about death matches, and in all honesty, I don't know whether I would have wanted this to be better, or quote unquote better, like more violent. Like, I don't know if I want to see like light tube stuff and like stuff that's just gonna, actually mess people up. So it's gonna be an interesting one, like seeing how these sort of matches get played out in AEW, because I'm really not sure how I feel about it. I've got really, really mixed feelings. I was really entertained by it, but I also thought it was pretty sick. I just don't know if there was any need for it. But it was a great little feud, in my opinion. The stuff that they both did on Road to Fyter Fest, and the little promos that they were cutting on each other was just great. And then the match itself was just really, really hectic and brutal, and exactly what I thought it was gonna be. But I'm not sure whether the brutality sort of brings it down for me. I still not sure whether I enjoyed it more than the women's match, so I think I got to stick at a 4 out of 6 just for the mixed feelings. I probably could give it a 5. I think I'd feel like a bit of a psychopath, and I'd feel like I was encouraging them. You don't need to do that, guys. Just have a wrestling match, please. I just want to see someone win by like submission or something. I don't know if I want to see people like getting shredded open with barbed wire, especially, like I said, for the introduction match to Moxley. It's like, how far is he going to end up going? In the coming months or the coming years, when they're trying to, elevate it past that. We all went for Moxley, so no one got a point there, or everyone did. It just depends on how you look at it. And I've sort of run out of things to say about this. It was brutal. It was different. And I had completely mixed feelings on it. So yeah. Moxley versus Joey Janela got a 4 out of 6 for brutality and sickness. Those were my thoughts on AEW's Fyter Fest. I really enjoyed this one. I've got to say, I enjoyed it a lot more than I enjoyed Double or Nothing, because I didn't feel quite as lost as I did with Double or Nothing. It was a really effective build to it that got me really invested in a lot of the characters. MJF I'm really into. I like Hangman. The stuff with Jungle Boy I've really liked. The women's match, there's so many people that I'm actually starting to get into and want to see more from, and I definitely didn't feel as lost, and I just think that that's a really good thing. So I'm really looking forward to Fight for the Fallen, and I can't wait for All Out either, although I do think that I'm going to end up getting lost with that one a little bit more. But I'm glad that you guys are with me on this journey as I learn this new world, and I hope you can stick with me and maybe just guide me through it a little bit. Congratulations to Gustavo Gama. You captured the WITD Predictions Championship, scoring 5. I scored 4, and Dan got 3. And I've got to say, congratulations. You didn't get your victory speech to me in time, so I will have Vera read that out in the next podcast. If you want to catch that podcast, make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notify bell, and you won't miss it. Don't leave yourself out in the cold. It's been great even though my throat's been dying and I've been really boiled and I'm suffering from hay fever. But I enjoyed this one. Hope you had a good time too, guys, and you should have a good one, because I'm off.